In 1989, a small British studio named Bullfrog released a groundbreaking game in all senses of the word. A game that would quietly redefine what video games could be. It was called Populous. At first glance, it didn't look like much. A map of land and water. Small pixelated figures wandering about. But it held an idea that no one had seen before. You weren't just a player. You were a god. In Populous, you didn't swing a sword or shoot an enemy. You didn't even play one of the little people on the screen. Instead, you shaped the world itself. You raised and lowered the land, providing space for your people to grow and prosper. Then you guided them to new lands and helped them overcome the rival power. Speaking of power, Populous was intoxicating, and this feeling was entirely new. I remember staring at the screen like under a spell when I first saw the game. The creator, Peter Molyneux, had stumbled into the concept almost by accident. While experimenting with a strategy game about settlements, he realized that sculpting the landscape and literally moving the earth was the most satisfying part. So he built the entire experience around that one idea. What emerged was a genre that would later be known as the God game. Interesting fact, I had the opportunity to exchange a few words with the game designer, Glenn Corpes, and he told me that he had used the same color palette as Dungeon Master in Chaos Strikes Back to create those beautiful landscapes in Populous. Since Dungeon Master has always been my favorite game, I can but approve this clever choice. On my side, I love Glenn's idea of using perforated paper as material for landscape, as this was the case in Promised Lands, an early add-on to Populous. Glenn is a genius. I used this idea for my computer timeline isometric design project, where the landscape is also like this. It consists in a flash review of 80 popular computers of the 80s and early 90s. If you're interested, the link is in the description. Playing Populous was unlike anything else in 1989. There was no hero, no scripted story, but a slow struggle between rival deities, each trying to dominate the map by expanding their civilization. Your worshippers needed more land to thrive, so you sculpted the terrain to help them grow. Then you changed their goals to gather and conquer. The more they believed in you, the more power you gained to help them overcome the evil power. It was creation and destruction in digital form. The user manual sets the tone of Populous as a game of divine power and influence. It describes you, the player, not as a commander, but as a god, whose power depends on the devotion of followers. Your people's faith fuels your own might. The more they believe in you, the stronger your miracles become. It subtly frames Populous not as a strategy game, but as a spiritual test, where belief and creation intertwine. The game is structured around 500 worlds, each representing a battle between rival gods. You guide your worshippers, shape the land, and compete to dominate each world. The interface consists of 5 fixed areas. First, the main gameplay region, where you watch the earthly events unfold and where you can interact with them. Top left, the Book of Worlds displays a mini-map showing friendly and enemy settlements. To the right, the mana bar indicates your power level. Depending on that, you can unleash more or less powerful plagues on your opponent. The shield above displays contextual data, such as your level of advance and the overall balance of power as compared to your opponent. The lower part of the screen is dedicated to a system of icons for your divine actions and game control. You could guide your people to settle down, building small huts that gradually transformed into stronger homes until they grew into forts and castles if given enough land to expand. When your population reached a certain level, you could call it to assemble, and then you could tell the leader to guide your army to fight the enemy at a point of your choosing. As your own divine power grew, you could unleash catastrophes on your enemies: earthquake, swamp, flood, volcano, night warrior, and Armageddon, where both civilizations clashed together in a final fight for world domination. What made Populous so fascinating was watching your tiny followers build and spread on their own, but within the confines you created. See them gather and march in your name. See your knight fighting his way through enemy territory, and the enemy struggle with the plagues you unleashed upon him. This gave you a strange sense of responsibility. Your people depended on you, not as a general, but as a spiritual leader. You weren't commanding them, you were guiding them, influencing their fate from above. It was both empowering and eerie, like peering into a miniature world of your making. There were 4 different landscapes: greenish grasslands dotted with oaks and fir trees, desert sands with cactuses and palm trees, frozen wastes filled with snow and ice, and lava worlds with nothing but ominous rocks. As you progressed in your conquest, a password system allowed you to replay any of the worlds you had conquered so far. There were several options to tweak the world parameters. One of them was network play, and that was something, since playing Thao modem link was not a common thing in 1989. I'm sure I wouldn't have left my computer for days and nights if I had been lucky enough to play with someone else using this option. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for my sanity, I wasn't. The game became a phenomenon. It sold millions of copies, won dozens of awards, and influenced an entire generation of designers. Without Populous, there would be no Black and White, no SimCity as we know it, no Civilization in quite the same form. It proved that a game didn't need to be about reaction or precision. It could be about creation, about playing with the very fabric of a world. And of course, there were the direct sequels, Populous 2 or Powermonger, excellent games as well, even Dungeon Keeper in some way. I remember that back in the day, Powermonger especially fascinated me, as it introduced more complex features in managing resources and establishing strategies to wage war against your opponents. Today, Populous might look primitive, with its chunky isometric graphics and simple sounds, but its spirit remains powerful. It was the first time players could feel what it meant to be a creator, to shape actual worlds, and to wrestle with the consequences of their own divinity. More than 3 decades later, Populous still whispers the same question to anyone who plays it. If you were a god, what kind of world would you make? What do you think? Just write your thoughts in comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you've subscribed. See you soon, and in the meantime, have nice retro dreams.